40-pound box of chicken breast from the butcher over at Albertsons on sale for $1.77, which is a great price for chicken breast. I'm going to be canning it today. Some of the things you'll need is I can all of my meat in the little pint jars because you'd be surprised how much meat you can actually get into these little jars. It's about a pound of meat cooked. You're gonna need your rings and brand new box of lids for sealing. And the way I do it is I always can outside. I have a glass top stove and I've broken a few of those glass tops doing my pressure cooking. When you cook meat, you do have to use a pressure cooker. I just brought my lid into the extension over in Hurricane. It's kind of over by the DMV. If any of you guys need to test the pressure on your pressure canners, I recommend doing that once a year. So mine is 13 pounds. Usually it's 12 pounds of pressure that we have to do here in St. George, but mine's off a little bit. So I'll be cooking at 13 pounds today. But you need to get a pressure cooker in order to do meat. A pressure cooker like your Instapots and stuff are not gonna work. It's a different kind that you have to do. So I'm gonna walk you step by step of how to can this chicken. Chicken's an amazing thing to have in your food storage, canned, because it doesn't take up any freezer space or refrigeration. Okay, so these chicken breasts come out full breast with a lot of fat on them. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking off all of the fat and the cartilage in between the two breasts and cutting them up into cubes, and I'm just gonna jam them into my jars. Okay, so I've got 14 pints of chicken, and I've added a teaspoon of salt to my chicken, and I have hot water here that I've just microwaved. And you don't have to use any water, but I like to just put a little bit of water to dissolve the salt. The chicken will make its own broth too. So I add a little bit of water. I'm gonna stick a knife down there and get rid of all the air bubbles. The next thing I'm doing is I shouldn't be letting these boil, so I'm gonna turn that off. But I have my lids warming. It's just, you don't wanna really boil them, you just wanna keep them warm so that when you're ready to put them on, the plastic is soft. And then I'm gonna go through and wipe off the rims of my jars and put the lids on with the rings. And then I'll show you how to get the pressure cooker ready. When I use the knife to get the air bubbles up, I use a plastic knife because you don't want to use a metal and ruin, like, clink or damage your jars. So I make sure always to use a plastic knife, and I just go down the sides and make sure there's no air bubbles. I also make sure to leave about an inch headspace so that nothing boils over when it's in the canner. So as you can see, I didn't add very much water at all. It's basically just to dissolve my salt, because the chicken's gonna make its own broth, which is amazing, because when I'm cooking, especially with beef is probably my favorite thing to can. The broth is awesome for stroganoff, for making gravies and stews. Anyway, it's pretty amazing stuff. Broth and going around the rims, just in case I splashed any of the chicken juice out and around, and making sure there's nothing on here that's gonna prevent a seal from happening with my lids. So I go around. Some of my older jars, if you notice, this is like my grandma's jar. Sometimes I actually go around it with my finger and feel, because when they've been used multiple times in a row, sometimes that plastic, let me show you. Sometimes this red plastic on the lids actually melts onto the rim, and I just want to make sure it's all smooth and all cleaned down. So I'm removing the hot lids, putting them on, and then I'll get the ring. And you just want to tighten the ring. It's hard to do with one hand. Hand tight. It doesn't have to be super tight. The next step is I brought all my chicken out here. It's ready to go. Here's my pressure cooker. You never want to set your pans on the bottom, directly on the bottom of your pressure cooker. So you're going to add your tray on there. Next, my pressure cooker is the 23 quart Presto pressure cooker, and it says to add 3 quarts of water to your canner. So I'm gonna put 3 quarts. I'm measuring purely because you guys are here, but as you can tell, see my water line? It goes exactly right up to where that's dark. So usually I don't even measure, I just fill it up right to that dark line. Okay, then we're gonna start putting in my pints. Okay, so you can fit, in my pressure cooker, I can fit 10 on the bottom layer, and then I have another tray that I put on top, and I'm gonna add another 10 to here. So all in all, I should be able to pressure cook 20 pints of chicken. Okay, so I just lit my stove, and I ended up running out of jars. So I'm not gonna fill it completely to 10 on top. What you want to do next is check your lid. You want to make sure that this little vent has nothing, that you can kind of see through it, and that there's nothing blocking it. Okay, then I line up this V with the V on my handle. Sorry, you're gonna get my backyard for a minute. It's hard to do with one hand. And then I'm gonna lock it into place by twisting it closed. Okay, this gauge right here tells me pounds of pressure that I'm cooking on, and at the altitude that we're at, 2,000 to 3,000, we have to cook at usually 12 pounds of pressure here. In Oregon, I used to only cook at 10 pounds. But again, since mine's off by about a pound, I'm gonna be cooking at 13, which is gonna be halfway in between that 10 and 15. I'm leaving my vent open. This is a little weight that I'm gonna put on, but I'm gonna wait first for about 10 minutes. This should start steaming constantly out of that before I put my weight on there. And then I'm gonna watch, once I put the weight on, I'm gonna watch till this gauge gets to about 13. And then I'm gonna make sure that my heat stays consistent to keep it at 13. And once it does, that's when I start timing. For pints, you need 1 hour and 15 minutes at 13 pounds of pressure. So I'm not gonna start timing until I hit that 13 pounds of pressure. So again, that's 75 minutes or 1 hour and 15 minutes at 13 pounds pressure. Okay, my pressure cooker, I don't know if you can see it, there you go, is now steaming out of the vent. I'm gonna time that for 10 minutes so that I can get all the oxygen or whatever it is in there. Just says let it vent for 10 minutes before putting on that little weight. So I'm gonna start a timer and get that timing. Okay, it's been 10 minutes. And now I'm gonna put this weight on there. You can see the pressure went up a little bit, but now I'm gonna just sit here and babysit the burner and get it to register at 13 pounds of pressure and then stay there. So stay tuned. Pounds of pressure. I'm gonna start a timer for 1 hour, 15 minutes. Okay, my timer just went off. You can see that I'm a little high on my pressure. I've had to babysit the heat on this a lot, and sometimes if it gets too hot, you can release some of the pressure by just lifting your weight. Just be careful not to get burned by the steam. And see how that brings down the pressure there. But anyway, I'm done, so I'm just gonna turn it off completely, move it off the heat carefully. And then you don't want to open this lid until the pressure is down to 0 and this little sealing block has dropped. Okay, so the chicken's done. As you can see, it's created its own nice little broth, chicken stock in there. If you need a Halloween decoration, it's kind of a cool, it looks like brains in a jar. That's so appetizing. But anyway, I now should have enough chicken to last me till the next sale, and I don't have to refrigerate or freeze it anymore because it's all shelf stable.